Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Tonka Report. It is my pleasure today to have the Mayor of Spring Park, Sarah Reinhardt, with us. Welcome, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you for coming back. It's been some time since we've had you and your city on the show.
Yes, it has been a few years, so I'm very excited to be back here to talk about Spring Park.
Perfect. Hey, I first want to start off, I know it's April now, but congratulations on the election from last November, being reelected again.
Thank you. It was a tough one. I was unopposed.
I heard that.
I did have 16 write-ins for other folks, but I managed to squeak by.
But you got their addresses. And so that's not funny. She doesn't have your addresses, but remember to vote for her next time. But and everything went well. You have a new council as well?
We do have a new council. We had Shirley Bren was elected this past January. She's new to Spring Park. Bruce Williamson was re-elected, and we actually had to make an appointment of a council member because we did have an election where a candidate actually passed away before the election took place, and he won the election. So we appointed Doug Sipple from our Planning Commission to serve a 2-year term until the next election can be held.
So then in the next election, you'll be electing 3 people.
We will be electing 3 people, yes,
okay,
including the mayor. The mayor's a 2-year term, and councils typically have 4-year terms.
And
so.
I should have said 3 council members, because right, as mayors out here, we're elected every 2 years.
Exactly, every 2 years. So it's always a very short election cycle for mayors.
So for Spring Park, that'll be a very interesting time, because usually there's that balance of the mayor and 2 council members, but you'll have a flip over of everyone potentially.
Potentially, yes. There would be 4 positions open, which is what we had last time. There was only 1 council member, Gary Hughes, who was not up for re-election because of the special election that we had as well. So kind of an unusual situation, but we managed to get through it, and we're of course very sorry for the loss of John Erickson, the candidate who did win the election posthumously.
Well, and he must be looking down, at least smiling, knowing that he won. His hard work was not in vain.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm not making a joke of it. You work hard to get elected, and he wanted to run, and he won, and it's good for him that he won.
And he had the personality type that he would look down and be happy. That caused a little bit of consternation trying to figure out what to do. So
funny.
Yeah.
I wish I could have met that guy, because that's kind of my humor as
well.
But
we have a great council. We really have a good council. We get along. We leave our issues at the table, make good decisions and good discussion and conversation. So we're in a good place with our council.
Well, nice. As a past mayor, I know that it's always nice to have the healthy discussion, but you always want a balanced council, that when you get done, you feel like that was great discussion, and the city of in your case, Spring Park, is better off for that discussion.
Yes, exactly.
So, well, good. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Both to you and to have a great council like that.
Thank you.
As we're taping here, we think about the snow that's flying, and we're dating the show here a little bit, but using, Minnesota humor, there's 2 seasons. There's winter and construction season, and if Mother Nature finally lets us get to spring and ice out will finally come out probably July 4th, and but your construction season will starting in Spring Park here as well. And you mentioned that you have a lighting project going on.
Yes, we are replacing the streetlights along Shoreline Drive. They are long past their usable life. We have 39 lights along the County 15 corridor that are going to be replaced. They, I think, date back to the late 80s when the county redid County 15, and they put the lights up. They're the same lights that are in Navarre and the same lights that were in Mound. Mound had their own replacement project several years ago, and it's now Spring Park's turn. We actually had 7 lights that needed to be taken down for safety concerns. They were so rusted at the base. We had a few actually fall down, and thankfully there was no property damage and nobody was hurt, but clearly we had a project that needed to happen. So we, again, are replacing 39 lights. We extensively, the last several months, have done a review of different technologies and different lighting pole materials and different designs and styles, and ultimately decided to go with an LED light for a few reasons, the major one being that it consumes far less electricity than and energy than the high-pressure sodium lights that you normally see with street lights. So we're real excited to kind of be on the leading edge a little bit with the technology and the cost savings that will result from these LED lights. I believe that the energy savings will be between 40 and 60%.
Annually?
Annually.
Okay.
Yes, for the LED lights.
Now, I do have to ask, how much more is an LED bulb versus the compact potassium, as you were just...
The high-pressure sodium?
Yeah.
It's a good question. They are about 50% more.
Okay.
I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but they do cost more on the front end. But they last longer and they use less electricity. So a typical high-pressure sodium bulb needs to be replaced if I get the
3 to 5 years
statistic,
or something,
yeah,
right.
and the LED lights last 4 times as long.
Okay, so yes, I was thinking it's 15 years is what I usually hear for LED lights.
Right. So the maintenance is far less. You have far less expense of replacing the bulbs and the bucket trucks that you need to rent.
Right.
So it's really a good deal overall. And the light quality is so much better. It's a more, a brighter white light versus a kind of hazy orangey yellow glow. So the corridor will definitely look different. It will, I think, feel well lit. We have some streetlights that were replaced as part of the MIST project that will not be going away. Those are real nice decorative light that are only 5 years old, so those will still remain.
Now, I do have to chuckle a little bit when you talk about a brighter light, because there was some, conversations here years past about the light pollution and trying to make lights not so bright.
And I think it's more of an impression. The actual lumens and candle power of the LED lights are not any brighter than the high pressure sodium, but the light is whiter. So it's a whiter light versus a yellow light. So a little, less shadowing. And it is a major thoroughfare, and we have a significant amount of businesses on 15 that do rely on that light for their, customers to get there and,
And is this a project borne solely by Spring Park, or is the county or state?
It is completely by Spring Park. There is no participation by the county. I think in 1989, the county put the lights up initially because it was part of the road project, but they immediately kind of turned over their operation and expense to the city. And again, Mound replaced their lights several years ago, and Orono and Navarre is actually looking at replacing their section of lights as well.
And do you think they'll go with something similar, or is it community by community?
It's kind of community by community. We did look at working with Orono to try to achieve some cost savings because they are the same lights, they are the same age, and theirs are deteriorating just as much as ours are. But we were a little bit further along in the project, and they weren't quite ready. And they need to do what is right for their community, and they just had to slow down a little bit, wanted to investigate some of the other options themselves. So, we had hoped for some joint cost savings, but didn't work out on this project, but certainly future projects, it might.
Okay, well, we hope that Orono would come to you after and say, can we see what you learned?
Oh, and our staff is completely sharing all of the information of what we have learned, so.
Now, I would find it interesting, just as an accountant and somebody who likes to, save pennies where you can save them, what actually the cost saving was, if you did a whole analysis based on what the actual costs were, and this, I'm not asking Spring Park to do this, but it'd be great to see in 2 years and 3 years when you actually look and say we have actually achieved the 30 or 40% saving and show that payback. I mean,
it will be very interesting to see because it certainly will be attributable to a bill that we received from Xcel Energy. So we should be able to document what those exact savings were. And we did those calculations ahead of time based on what the kilowatt charges were from the power company. And so we hope that we will realize those savings.
Right, but sometimes what they believe, and I know they have good information, but actual versus theoretical.
Right, actual versus theoretical, you're absolutely right.
Right. So the project will start when?
It will start as soon as construction season can start.
So July 4th when ice goes out.
July 4th. I think our hope is that the lights will be going up end of June before July 4th. I would love for July 4th to people could come into Lake Minnetonka and see our new streetlights.
So it's a pretty quick project.
It is. Well, there's a lot of unknown variables. These are, we're replacing, 25-year-old lights, and some of the bases need replacing, some of them don't. So there's a few unknowns that until they actually get the old lights down, we don't know exactly how long it's going to take. But estimates are a couple weeks once they get going. But
okay. And other than that, it's pretty quiet times in the construction season then for
we don't have any road projects this summer, so construction-wise, things are pretty quiet. There are no major development applications in place in Spring Park, and as you know, we are a fully developed city. There is no vacant land for large projects, so right now we're pretty quiet. Although I do believe that our building permits are up a little bit, that there has been more activity this last year than in previous years. So hopefully we're kind of leading out of maybe this recessionary time and that things are turning around.
So reconstruction, tear downs and rebuilds, or remodels?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both.
So, that'll lead great into this conversation because as we get to this time of year, one of the things that we have to do at council is, evaluate our properties. And you're actually finished with that as we talk about this, and you're going to be having a meeting soon. But where are the values in Spring Park right now?
The values in Spring Park for 2012, the overall property value dropped 1.2%. So it's unfortunate.
Just residential?
Just, no, that's the overall property value. Yes,
okay.
the residential off-lake property dropped the most in Spring Park, 8.3%.
Okay.
It went down. The apartments and condos went up just a little bit, about 1.5%, but the overall property value, including commercial and industrial, went down 1.5%, or 1.2%, which has been a long string of years where we've seen declines. In fact, the information that we received from the Hennepin County assessor for the last 10 years in Spring Park, the property values have only increased 1.5%.
From 2003?
From 2003 to 2013, 1.5%, which is pretty dismal. I mean, that's a decade of lost equity.
Right.
I mean, nothing, virtually nothing. So the assessor did say that he thought, and there's no crystal ball or 100% predictions,
right.
but signs are looking like this may be at least the last year of the decline that we've seen this last several years. So
sure.
we're hopeful that things will turn around.
And for the homeowners, we hope that they do, right? I mean, everyone likes to buy
right.
a home and see the values. For us as officials, I mean, you, Mayor, not myself anymore, it doesn't really change what we do. We set a budget and stuff, and it's just a percentage of how that gets pushed out to the properties. But it's nice to know that your valuations are going up and the people feel good about that.
Right. I mean, a home is a person's most generally largest investment. So, to see it stay so flat over 10 years is kind of depressing.
Right. Well, and, now it's not so bad, but think about the people that bought in 2002 and watched it go up and back down again. And
right.
So, but let's hope that we are seeing improvement in the economy, and in your case, you start seeing more reconstruction or remodels, and those valuations when we have you back on, and next year at this time we can say we're up 4% or 6%, and people will be happy about that.
I hope so, and more sales. We've definitely seen more real estate activity in the city, so people are starting to buy.
Okay.
So we really, I think, have bottomed out, and we're ready to come back up.
Well, if the valuations are lower, that would mean market value may as well be lower. And
mm-hmm.
who would not want to live in Spring Park? It's a great area, and it's an opportunity for people to get out here who at one time may have thought, I can't afford to live out in Spring Park
right.
or around the lake, and
right.
now I can.
Yeah, lake property is very attainable. I mean, it's very attainable, just given where the market has taken things lately.
Right.
So
as we get busy now as well, and as I'll make the joke throughout the whole show here that ICE will be out July 4th and activities start getting busy. The one thing I do want to ask you about, and this is a small topic on the one hand, but yet a very large topic in most people's mind. I know that this year Mound dropped their police department and took on Orono, who serves you.
Yes, yes.
Did that affect your service at all with Orono?
It actually affected us in a positive way. Orono has been Spring Park's police department for many years, and by taking on Mound as a department and kind of consolidating, what it really did for us is increase our service levels. Folks see police officers so much more because of the fluid traffic pattern along Shoreline Drive.
Right.
It used to be the dead end for Orono police. They'd get to the Seton Bridge and they'd have to turn around. Where now they patrol Navarre, Spring Park, and they go into Mound, even actually Minnetonka Beach. So that whole Shoreline Drive corridor, and just the way the police do their patrol patterns and looping, we see them quite a bit. The first quarter of 2013, we had kind of a recap meeting of all of the contract cities, and the response times actually went down for Spring Park.
Nice.
So we used to have around a little bit over 5-minute response time for the priority 1 calls, and now we're just over 4 minutes. So the fact that there's more police and they're closer really has been a positive
Absolutely.
for our residents.
Now, I do have to ask, when you say contract cities, is Mound a part of that conversation? I would think Mound's a separate meeting with them, and then you have...
They have a separate agreement. Orono provides police service for Spring Park, Minnetonka Beach, and of course Orono, and now they also provide police service for Mound. We already had a contract arrangement that was based on a formula for service calls, population, and market value of the city, and I believe Mound has a separate contract arrangement for price.
Okay.
So it's working for all parties now, and we're certainly willing to look at what works better in the future, but we're very happy with our police service.
I do want to say kudos to the Orono, and well, actually kudos to you and your residents and the people that do business here in Spring Park. 5 minutes to 4 minutes is the difference between life and death at times. And so that's absolutely fantastic, because the police are the first on the call-in, an EMT call-out, so they show up for that stuff. So that's wonderful to know, and that's a drastic change. It's not 10 seconds or 5 seconds. A minute is a lot of time.
And we hear all the time from our residents who have had to make that emergency call that I can't believe how fast the police got to us, and we're happy with that. You know, we're a small city. We can't provide policing ourselves, so the fact that we have a good department that we can contract with is really something to be said for that.
Nice. So, and I'll make certain next time I see Chief Farnick that I tell him that I heard this, and I'm proud of them, because it's wonderful to have that kind of service.
And they you know, there's a lot of other pluses for having the cities combined. Their officers have a lot more promotion opportunities just with a bigger department. There's more things that they can offer the cities. You know, they can have a dedicated officer to serve multifamily buildings. They can have additional school resource officers, so they can provide more opportunities for the cities they serve by being a bigger department.
Sure. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. It's nice to have a positive note when that kind of change, because a lot of times when that happens, it's not always the case.
Yes,
so.
And there was definitely some negative press regarding that from the Mound side, and from Spring Park side. We're very happy to have them on board in our police area.
Okay. You know, something else, when ice finally rolls out on July 4th, you have some things that are coming up on the lake that we spoke about before, 2 different topics.
Yeah, a couple different topics. The Lake Minnetonka Conservation District, the kind of the governing body on the lake, one of the things they've been looking at is a bow fishing ordinance. Who knew what bow fishing was?
I want to say it again, bow fishing.
Bow fishing.
Bow and arrow. So
B-O-W, yeah. So apparently it's a sport. Who knew? But it's a sport that uses a bow and arrow, and it's tethered, and it's regulated by the DNR, but pretty loosely. And the concern for the Lake Minnetonka cities is every city has a separate ordinance, and it's really tough for the Water Patrol to enforce. I mean, when you're in the water, you don't necessarily know what city you're in, what the regulations are. So they want to come up with an ordinance that encompasses, that's the same for all of the cities. And Spring Park, we have a pretty significant stance against it. We feel that discharging a weapon of any kind in a large urban recreational lake isn't serving the interest of the folks that are on the water. Some of the other cities feel that it can be managed with some regulations, maybe not allowing bow fishing at night, you know, not allowing the use of the big headlamps that attract the fish. Having a certain distance from docks and boats and structures. So I'm sure that we'll find a happy medium.
Sure.
I'm a little disappointed that some of the other cities did not, you know, sort of share the same viewpoint that Spring Park had, but I think we're a little bit unique in that we're so small and our lots are so narrow that the idea that there could be a boat in the water with a bow and arrow shooting a carp, it just screams of unsafety, you know, safety to me, that there would be some issues with that.
So do you know, are the ordinances that different from city to city? There's 14 cities.
There are 14 cities, and right now there are some that don't allow it at all, and it really relates to the discharging of a weapon and a bow and arrow. And if you think about it, you don't, you know, hunt deer in the park, so why would you shoot fish in a lake? It's kind of the same analogy that Spring Park is using. But some, Orono, I think for one, does allow it by permit. You do need to get a permit with the city. Others have no regulation, and it just, you know, falls then to the DNR regulation. So it's something that the LMCD has been working on, and I know that we'll hear more about. And hopefully there'll be a draft ordinance to consider in the near future. For the most part right now, they've been trying to wrap their arms around what all of the cities want and kind of get that opinion known.
Now, as a bow hunter, I actually sit back and think about the range that something like that could go seems minimal. I just hope that they're bringing in the people that do bow fish and the DNR, and you're using all information when you put together an ordinance, that we're not unduly restricting somebody's sport, because it is a fun sport. I have, you know, we didn't talk about this before, but I have bow fished before.
Oh, you have?
And it's pretty amazing, because it's a lot harder than you think it is.
Oh, I'm sure, especially in Lake Minnetonka, where you can't see more than a few feet into the water.
But with the tethering and everything else, I mean, I never would have thought twice about I might be causing somebody's harm. So I just want to give that to you, Mayor, that it's one of those things that I understand your concern, and when you think of bow and arrow and the potential and, you know, the harm that they could possibly do, our cars are the same way. We could do it. So, but I hope that when the ordinance comes down, it's a fair ordinance for everybody.
No, I hope so too. It's interesting to know that you have participated in the sport. So
not in Minnetonka, to be fair. It's always been, you know, I grew up in northern Wisconsin, so.
Right. And it seems like it would be a perfect sport for a rural area, but on a large recreational lake where there's jet skis and there's wakeboarders and people just enjoying and cruising the lake and swimmers, and I just have a hard time figuring out where it would actually make sense to do.
Sure.
But
and again, all I'll ask on behalf of fellow bow hunters is just make sure you listen with an open mind to everything, because it may not be, as dangerous as you think it is. Good. The other thing that comes up every year when we speak to, well, every year, all year when we have mayors on here on the show, is about the invasive species and the Eurasian milfoil and stuff, and there's...
The aquatic invasive species is always a topic of interest for any Lake Minnetonka city, and Spring Park is no exception. And the Lake Minnetonka Conservation, again, the LMCD, they recently proposed a new AIS plan for milfoil and curly leaf pondweed. It's kind of a management plan that has some significant budget implications for the various Lake Minnetonka cities. And the LMCD has a levy that gets distributed kind of by a formula to all of the 14 cities, and each city receives effectively different services based on this management plan that they're talking about. So Spring Park, we're concerned that if we're going to be charged more for maybe chemical treatments in Carson's Bay and Carmen's Bay, which aren't even in Spring Park, how does that benefit Spring Park residents? And so there's kind of an issue of fairness and equity. And conversely, a city that doesn't receive any mechanical harvesting, why should they pay extra for harvesting? So, there's some real issues with how that plan is going to be implemented from a financial perspective, and so we're kind of watching that closely.
And when do you expect to get that information?
I believe they've approved the management plan, but without a budget. Okay. So they're entering their budget cycle here come May and June, so we'll find out,
So excuse me I'm just trying to think of how does Spring Park actually come up with this, because your budget's passed already. Your budget's passed for 2013.
For 2013. So this would be for 2014.
Okay, so with the management plan, so this is a management plan for 2014?
For 2014.
So 2013 is set, and you already know what you're paying. And,
yes.
And is it that drastically different from 13 to 14?
Percentage-wise, it is. The LMCD, I don't know what their total budget is, but for Spring Park, it would increase about 30%. So, in actual dollars, it's not significant. For our city, for cities like Minnetonka, who is a very large city and rightfully so, pays a very disproportionate amount of the LMCD's budget through their levy because they're such a large city. I mean, theirs will go up by thousands of dollars.
Okay.
And yet they won't receive the same benefit either because of how the chemical treatments were and harvesting is spread out across the lake. There's only certain bays that qualify for the chemical treatments and certain bays that qualify for the harvesting. So it just seems like there needs to be a better way to pay for it. And really, what really I think kind of ticks me off about the whole equity issue is that Lake Minnetonka is a large public body of water. And anytime there's any money that needs to pay for some plan, it always comes back to the cities and the lakeshore owners, but yet a vast majority of the public who does not live on the lake uses the lake. Sure. So it seems like there needs to be a better system to pay for things like AIS management, whether it's an added fee for a boat license or something. There needs to be a better plan that is more statewide or region-wide or something.
Well, more to come.
More to come, I guess. Yeah. Yes, more to come.
Well, Mayor, we're getting to the end of the show. I can't believe we actually used up 30 minutes, just the two of us. But as with every time we get to the end of the show, I ask you what's going to be happening in the coming months for Spring Park. Do you have a list of events that you want to share with the viewers?
A few events, provided that the ice does go out. Lord Fletcher's has their crappie contest on May 4th. Don't know if that's going to take place. I'm sure the ice will be out by then. We certainly hope so. And then every Thursday night, the Minnetonka Drive-In on Shoreline Drive has a classic car night, which is just a very, very fun event. There's a few bike events on the Dakota Rail Trail this summer and music on the wharf at Fletcher's. And Lord Fletcher's, for the first time, applied for an Oktoberfest permit for the city. So October 5th on Saturday, they are going to have an Oktoberfest connected to the wharf with some music and beer, and it should be a good time.
Well, fun stuff coming up for the summer season and early fall. Well, Madam Mayor, thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to having you on again the next time.
Sounds great. Anytime.
Thanks. And thank you for joining us today. If you have questions for Mayor Reinhardt, please contact her at any time, and we'll see you the next time on the Tonka Report.